Broadcasting live from the Inkmoth Nexus on the plane formerly known as Mirrodin. This is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody. Graham here.
Cameron here.
And joining us this week...
I'm Nelson.
It's
Hi.
Nelson.
I'm here.
Who's going to hopefully be on more Tap Taps.
Yeah, I concede a lot of games of Magic whenever I play, so it seems like I should just keep coming here.
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about modern and the new state of modern and the unbannings thereof, therein, or whatever. We're going to talk about the modern unbannings because that's kind of a big thing, really shaking that format up. And then, of course, before that, we're going to do a crack a pack. But before even that, we're going to remind you that the show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. If you check out cardkingdom.com/LRR, that'll put our affiliate code on there, which will let them know that we sent you over there. And we do that because we like them. We think they're really great. They have really good customer service, crazy fast shipping, and
Don't they have a button right now you can get?
and they do indeed. If you tell them, LoadingReadyRun sent me, button please, you'll get a little 1-inch button, which currently, we're already out of just flunge. The current button says, that's a real ham sandwich, which
What's that all about?
is... I think it came up during the very first conspiracy draft that we did in Moonbase 3.
That's two moon bases ago.
Yeah. Alex was on commentary. We were doing commentary, and Alex was on commentary, and he referred to a 43 card deck as a ham sandwich. And since then we've used, since then Alex primarily has used the term ham sandwich to refer to a variety of different things.
Well, I think he may have got, I first heard it from Jeremy White.
Oh, there we go.
Even before that, and he usually referred to it as being kind of like the tier below a goldfish. When you're playing against someone, like you could be sitting across from a real ham sandwich and just still crater with this plan that you're on, right? Is usually the context I've heard it in.
The food metaphors I heard just like generally in the Magic community where it always had to do with like team trios, like when you're showing up to like a team event, when they had the rule you could just communicate. So it's like, well, do I want to, play against three? Am I more afraid of three pretty average, like kind of PTQ top 8 level players, or am I more afraid of just like John Finkel and a cactus and a potato?
Right.
If John Finkel can instruct the cactus and the potato, is that more worrisome than
Yeah. Does John Finkel and a cactus on a 55-45 deck? Right?
Yeah.
So
maybe that's what the button is.
I think I've heard it used also as speaking of food references, as in like a pickle, that's a real ham sandwich he's found himself in.
Yeah.
It's a broad.
We're turning the corner on that definition. Right?
Yeah, the English has a few words like this that just mean nothing in specific, but mean very clear things in context.
Yeah, it's very strange. And real quick before we get to the Crack-a-Pack, you had a shout out.
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, I was judging recently in Grand Prix Houston. I can't remember what this main event was. Was it standard? No, it was limited. It was Rivals of Ixalan Sealed. But I was working the side events, and at one point a player came up to me and wanted me to bring a pack to the Crack Pack box, which I am in front of now. So obviously I could have done it, but I had my judge clothes on that I have to wear for a 12-hour shift, and I just didn't want one more thing in my pocket. So sorry, I felt bad about that, but shout outs to you. I don't think I got your name. And yeah, if you want to just go ahead and open that pack of Iconic Masters, and then just tweet at me with a picture of what it is, and I'll talk about it, or we'll put it on screen the next one of these I'm on. It's possible.
I think this was actually the pack we opened last.
Thanks for that. Sorry I couldn't bring your pack all the way here. All right, we gonna crack some pack?
Yeah, let's, do we have oh, we do, great, perfect.
Okay.
We'll give it a roll.
Giant foamy D20.
11. 1, 2.
11. 3, 8. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
We might, okay.
Oh, wow.
Let's see if it's a real pack. This is Crack-a-Pack. This was from,
hey,
speaking of
I
packs,
brought this one too.
Speaking of packs you've transported, this was from Milo in, it says Yukon, Yukon and Northwest Territories?
Yellowknife.
Yellowknife,
Northwest Territories. So hilariously, I'm being completely sold out by the foam dice here for once bringing a pack back. I was judging a convention up in Yellowknife last summer. Wow. Why you do this to me, Milo?
Of course, it's a pack of Homelands. Thank you, Milo.
He actually just pulled this out of like his, the walls of his house or whatever.
We
up
might
there.
just-
Even in Yellowknife, it's cheaper to use Homelands packs as insulation than actual insulation.
We might just do a second one.
Sure.
Just because
fair.
Homelands, there's only 8 cards.
Yeah.
So pack of Homelands goes by really, really
And
quickly.
0 of them are good.
So, well, that's obviously
That's
the
not true.
rare.
There might
'cause
be a
it's
memory
like
lapse.
a named person. So let's see what we got going on here.
Okay.
And
Hava.
Hava Constable. Boy, I'm just trying to figure out where to hold it. There we go. 1 green for a 2/1+ star. And Hava Constable has toughness equal to 1 plus the total number of green creatures in play.
Look how majestic
So,
he is, though.
Not even that you control.
It comes in as a 2/2.
Can I take that and then in 30 years I'm going to bring it to the barber shop and just be like, give me this?
Yeah.
Because I just need
yeah.
my hair to turn gray and then I can be like, make me look like this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Reminds me of Billy Connolly.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is a 2/2 for 3.
It's kind of snarly, hey?
Yeah.
That guy needs a cup of coffee. We've got.
Just trying to make sure if.
Oh, this is Altar.
Oh,
it's
right.
the
Homelands
Altar.
also has 4 arts for everything. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's Mesa Falcon.
Misa Falcon? No? Okay.
The best character from Homelands. yeah.
One in a white for a 1/1 bird with flying, and for 1 in a white, you can give it +0/+1 until end of turn. So it's got what
watch
we
this.
lovingly refer to as butt breathing.
It's got like,
I've decided that I'm now going to call that huffing.
huffing. Yeah, he's got expensive huffing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
this is a perfect Homelands card. Mesa Falcon, or however you say it.
Cam,
Yeah.
this is Pretty Falcon, friend to Soraya.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, in Destiny 2, Soraya
Hawthorne has
is the Falcon.
the Falcon.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's an MTG shout out because Soraya the Falconer is one of the
Yeah.
legendary creatures, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
it-
Falconer. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
There you go.
Jeej pointed it out to me.
Wow, that's awesome.
He's like, yeah, it's a deep nerd. There's some deep
That is a
nerd
deep
at
magic
Bungie.
joke. Wow,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Well, shout outs Bungie. Folk of Anhava, presumably they have to go to the Constable if they have trouble. It's a single green for a 1/1. If assigned as a blocker, Folk of Anhava get +2/+0 until end of turn. So they can trade up, I guess.
Really shows you how far away they were from the end design on creature types. Because like here we are, it's like the farthest possible end of the spectrum, where like the creature type is like 4 words that are
Folk
just the
of
same
Anhava, yeah.
as the entire title of the card.
The
And clearly, this creature type will not be shared with anything.
It's a
Yeah.
human now, by the way.
Of course,
it's a
yeah,
human.
it's just a
The-
human.
If you're watching the video,
with no
the
job,
version-
clearly. Yeah.
If you're watching the video, the version that we have up on screen is like the people dancing. The one that we have is a really bored-looking woman. She has a stick.
Yeah, I think her cart broke down and she's on the side of the road.
Also, the one with the people dancing, the flavor
There we go.
text is attributed to. So this flavor text is attributed to Rayhan Samite Alchemist. I'm pretty sure Samite Alchemist is a card. The flavor text on the other one is attributed to Joskin, the Anhava Constable, but this Anhava Constable is not named. Anyway, it's prophecy. It's a
Milo,
single,
why you make me do this? Yeah.
It's a single white mana for a sorcery with some old school Christopher Rush art.
Awesome Isan shade staring this person down.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
this is looking forward to the only playable card in this set.
No, Isan shade isn't even good.
No, but it
The
was
set-
it was the only one that got run in that.
Oh, in one of the decks,
when
okay.
you had to have a card from
yeah.
every set.
Well, Memory Lapse and
Memory Lapse.
and Serrated Arrows were pretty
Yeah,
popular too.
right.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
So prophecy is a single white mana sorcery. Reveal the top card of target opponent's library. If it's a land, gain 1 life. That opponent then shuffles their library, and you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Okay.
Yeah. Wake me up when you're done reading this card.
And you know what would be? You know what would make Stormcrow even more busted? If it was green.
Wow.
Willow Fairy is 1 and a green for a 1/2 flyer.
Prophesizing Stormcrow.
Also, it's a more relevant subtype.
Oh,
Much more relevant.
yeah, fairy. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it's a mostly naked dude.
Or a mostly
So-
naked lady.
Oh,
on
that's
top of a
different one.
deer. Yeah.
That's way cooler.
This is
Yeah,
the one
we've got
we're looking
that.
at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Susan Van Camp.
If
art.
you ever show up to a party and these people are there, stay.
yeah, because that party's gonna be. Awesome.
You're gonna want to leave. You're gonna want to leave, but stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next is Trade Caravan. It's a single white mana for a 1/1 Caravan. During your upkeep, put a currency counter on Trade Caravan, and for 0 mana, remove 2 currency counters to untap target basic land. Use this ability only during any opponent's upkeep. Look at the size of that
Blue-white
weird
control
spider
caravan.
creature.
Yeah, Kaha Folio is the best.
Yeah.
Clearly given no high-level art direction on what this plane looked like.
Nope.
It is now a human nomad, by the way.
Oh, cool.
All right, cool.
At the time, it was so. This one seems to imply there'll be other caravans to team up with because it's not
Yeah,
a summon
like-
trade caravan.
Yeah,
just
like-
summon caravan.
There are dinosaurs here.
Yep.
This is a giant turtle, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we have Sengir Bats. 1 black for a 1/2 bats. It has flying. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard the same turn as Sengir Bats damaged it, put a +1/+1 counter on Sengir Bats.
Oh, it's got the Sengir vampire ability.
Yeah, on the off chance that it lives.
So it's just a little Sengir bat.
Yeah, there's a little
Or
vampire.
Sengir vamp.
It's,
Yeah,
it's,
little
a,
vampire.
it's a Sengir vampire in bat form. Yeah, and then I'm assuming our rare. There wasn't really like rarity explicitly.
There
like,
aren't really rares in Homelands. Yeah, there's just.
But
a
we
lot
have
of
a
bad
legendary
cards.
creature, so I assume we have Aeron the Relentless.
Only one art for this card.
Yeah, 3 red for a 5/2 with haste, and for red regenerate.
And also really sweet art by Christopher Rush. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Clearly tells the story of him regenerating several times.
isn't that Van Halen?
Yeah, maybe.
Potentially.
Well, yeah. Who does it remind me of, actually?
I like the design.
No, it looks like, you know who Aaron reminds me of is the guy from Ghostbusters 2, the bad guy? Maybe that's just the look
Oh,
on his
Vigo?
face. Vigo, yeah.
the Carpathian.
Vigo the Carpathian. Is anyone feeling me on
scourge
that?
of-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Moldovia or whatever.
Yeah.
He was reprinted in Time Spiral.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Good for him.
as a human rare.
This was one of my favorite cards from Homelands when I was a kid and the
like
set
it.
came out. I was like, wow, there's more ball lightning creatures. Only this
Bandana
one's really
just
bad.
has like a circle with a line through it. It's like no
No,
bandanas.
no bandanas.
This is part of the the period where they did the if it's not in the color pie, the color can have it, but it's bad. The like
Right.
three
Three
red,
red
to-
regenerate.
It's like
Regenerate,
red
yeah.
shouldn't have regenerate, so but it can have it as long as it's bad.
Weirdly, there's a bunch of early cards with red regenerates, though, right? Like it's bad on all. Well, except for Uthden Troll, that one's fine, but that's just like an anomaly. But
Let's-
yeah,
But like Hornet Sting is the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like green
Bad
can
lightning
have direct
bolt.
damage,
Yeah.
but it has to be terrible.
yeah, it's like 4 mana or whatever for shock. Yeah.
Should we do a not Homelands pack as well?
Yeah,
Please.
sure,
All
let's
right,
do
please.
that.
Thank you, Milo.
Thanks, Milo. I hope it's not too cold up there right now when we film
12.
this
All right.
in February.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Also, shout outs
12.
to the rest of the Yellow Knife Magic scene.
This is a pack of Oath of the Gatewatch given to us from Kara, who who made us the 3D Hedron.
Oh.
The 3D printed illuminated Eldrazi Hedron that adorns our set.
Cool.
So not this set, but the other
A set. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the sets.
So thank you.
This
Kara.
is one of, if not my absolute favorite set.
Really?
I really like this set. Yeah.
I enjoyed it with the Gatewatch.
Yeah, I thought it was great, limited, and I really loved that they introduced the 6th color of Magic seamlessly.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that they just like snuck it in there, like the Eldrazi. It had been there all along, and then it woke up.
Yeah.
You know, and they did that with the 6th,
Yeah,
sixth color. Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out it had been here the whole
Yeah,
time.
we've been hiding in your soul ring this whole time for 25 years, and now we're erupting. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that.
Our first card is the Umara Entangler. It's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Rogue ally with prowess.
And yeah, now we've come full spectrum on creature types. Now they've got, again, there's too many words just because there's too many relevant creature types.
Yep. It's this was like the worst one of them, I think. Like
This card is
it was
fine.
fine.
It just didn't get play because it was
Yeah.
overshadowed. I got a little bit of play in the blue-red Surge deck, actually. You were happy running this guy in that deck, as long as you were winning.
Akum Flameseeker is a 3/2 human ally for 2 and a red with Cohort, which was one of the Oath of the Gatewatch mechanics. So you tap this creature and an untapped ally you control to discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. So tap Cohort to Rummage, which is fine.
Yeah, solid on a 3/2 for 3.
Oh, here we go. Literal potential first pick.
Yep.
Ondu War Cleric. 2/2 for 1 and a white, human cleric ally. With cohort, tap this and an untapped ally, and you gain 2 life. This, this deck, the black-white cohort
just
life gain ally deck.
This
Loading
was-
up with the
it was-
Vampire Envoys.
Yeah, it was onto War Cleric's format, basically. This is probably the most, I would say, impactful common. Like the kind of warp, the limited metagame warp.
It was
around the
so
most.
good to play with and so frustrating to play
Yeah,
with.
yeah, it
This
was
would be just
crazy.
like at the end of any turn that you didn't attack, you're just like, oh, I might as well. Boop.
Let's gain that life.
This one went into probably my favorite deck from the format. Kozilek's Shrieker is a 3/2 for 2 and a black, but it is a colorless spell because it has Devoid. And for colorless mana, not generic, colorless, it gets +1/+0 and Menace until end of turn. Oh, yeah, you could hammer in with this one.
Can really black-red Eldrazi someone with this card.
Yeah. Lead by example, pretty unexciting if I recall correctly, but fine. It's 1 and a green for an instant support 2, which is support the reminder text for which is put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures.
Sort of a bear.
Yeah, well, it's a pump spell that sticks around, and I feel like in a lot of other formats this card would have been great. It just again was sort of overshadowed. Like, I started picking this card lower and lower as the set went.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like a flash bear, but not.
It feels like
Well, yeah, you need a bear already in play.
Yeah.
And it can only get 2 counters if you have 2 creatures to pump, right?
it feels like instant speed.
Oh, really?
You can't put them both in the same one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It
So
feels like instant speed travel prep, but it never really worked out that way.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing was maybe it's like most of the green decks is just you had to have so many spots devoted to creatures.
Yeah.
And that was the weird thing about support, right? You really wanted to play like creatures with support because your opponent's going to kill one of your creatures, so you just need to kind of play a creature every turn to make sure that your support actually works. So playing a bunch of spells is tough. Like you only want to play like 3 or 4 spells in green support decks.
Unnamed Hunger is next. 2 and a black for a creature enchantment. Or an enchanted creature gets +2/+1 and Menace. Nice. It's fine.
I don't know if I ever picked this card. I
don't-
think I saw them
I
going
think
around
I
the
saw
tables
it-
really late.
I
Yeah.
saw it played once.
Yeah.
I was so wary of auras in this format because O-Strike
Yeah.
was at common,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah. And there's a common pacifism too, I think, right? In white, yeah.
It's kind of an interesting, like, unholy strength.
Yeah, it's like Holy
Reprint.
Strength plus Menace, yeah, for 2 more mana. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy was real good in that colorless deck. The Warden of Geometries. 2/3 for 4 generic mana, so a colorless Eldrazi drone with Vigilance, and tap to add colorless to your mana pool.
I love me vigilant mana dorks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you wanted a pretty high number of colorless mana generators in the colorless deck because you needed it for activated abilities of, like we already saw, the Shrieker, what was our favorite? The one that drained.
That was my favorite too.
It was the uncommon black.
Yeah.
Displacer? No, that's the white
No,
one.
the Displacer was the blue-black one.
That was the.
I should remember this
No,
because I
Eldrazi
picked
Displacer
them
was
so
the
many times.
rare, wasn't it?
That's the rare white one. Sorry.
Oh.
I think it also
Right.
starts with a D.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a
maybe-
black
maybe
devoid
something-
creature that
something
drains
drone.
life for
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Speaking of drones, Stalking Drone, also sweet. It's a 2/2 for 1 and a green, but it is colorless. It has Devoid. And for a single colorless mana, it gets +1/+2 until end of turn. You can only activate that once per turn. It's not quite as good as we were just talking about it last episode. The one from Innistrad, the wolf.
Quilled Wolf?
No, not Quilled Wolf.
Oh,
It's a 2/2 for 2, and then for 3 mana you can give it +2/+2.
Oh, the original Innistrad one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can see
Anyway,
it.
it's a lot cheaper.
Right.
You can only use colorless mana, but yeah, this was sweet. Stalking Drone was honestly pretty powerful. It was really annoying if it was just like Stalking Drone, and the next turn you're like attack with Stalking Drone, whether you block or not, pump it, play another Stalking Drone.
Yeah.
So was that card you're talking about a drone?
I think it was
The
called
draining one?
Drone. Like I think it had drone in the name. I'm not
It
sure.
was uncommon,
It was,
it was
an
black.
uncommon- It was devoid, but black casting cost. It's okay. Paul can look it up.
All right.
Core Sky Climber.
This guy?
Oh,
No,
sorry.
no.
No, it wasn't that
The
one.
Dominator?
No.
It's a black uncommon.
And then it uses color. Has an activated ability in colorless to drain.
Yeah.
Did we open it?
Devoid
We
might be messing up Gatherer.
Right.
Core Sky Climber is next. It's a 2 and a white for a 3/2 Core Soldier ally, and for 1 and a white, it gains flying until end of turn. This actually was pretty all right.
Yep.
I lost some games to this.
The problem is Vampire Envoy also has flying, so it's not the highest pick, but it was a solid role player.
Yeah.
It's an ally.
But if you don't have flying blockers, it's just like, wow, sure, I'm taking 3.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this guy ended a lot of games, for sure.
Reality Hemorrhage, 1 and a red for a colorless spell that deals 2 damage to creature or player.
You'll notice Ondu War Cleric getting burned
Yeah.
in the heart in the art of this card. Yeah, that's who you needed to kill.
It's a Tranquil Expanse. It's land, enters tapped, adds green or white.
They knocked the art out of the park on this cycle of the new Coastal Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite arts in all of Magic is just Meandering Stream, the blue-white one. I think it's either Meandering River or Meandering Stream. It's the from this cycle. But yeah,
I really
good
like
job.
the blue-black one where it was underwater and there were like just the hints
Yeah.
of
No, that one's
enormous
really nice. Yeah.
things in the background.
Yeah,
It was
that's
really
really nice.
eerie.
Next up, we have Thought Harvester. Pretty good in the blue version of the Devoid deck. 3 and a blue for a 2/4 with Devoid, so it's colorless. Flying. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, target opponent exiles the top card of his or her library. So just sort of
Yeah, I remember this putting
for
in
the
a lot of
processors.
work.
Yeah.
Getting Nibble the library is kind of neat, but
It's a
every time
2/4.
I had it in play, it was just like 4-mana 2/4 flyer. Like,
Yeah.
is that good enough? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There we
There
go.
we are,
Essence
Essence Deplete.
Depleter.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that
we
was
forgot
the
your
one.
name, buddy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were
you-
thinking of Essence Depleter, 2 and a black, Devoid 2/3, and then for 1 and a colorless, opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yeah, this guy made me so happy. This was
Yeah.
the deck I just wanted to play. Was
Yeah,
blue-black.
I drafted black green a lot with this guy and try to get out the wastes and stuff. And yeah, I picked those Essence Depleters over a lot of otherwise better cards. Yeah.
With stuff like the Thought Harvester, how, if you remember the format, how important was the ingesting type stuff?
Less so when this set came out because there were more ways to exile cards from your opponent's, or there was less ways total. I should say there was a few more ways, like with Thought Harvester, but there were less cards per pack that would exile stuff from your opponent's deck, so that you could then process it. And also, there weren't processors in Oath of the Gatewatch, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that whole theme kind of just like got way worse in Limited.
Stoneforge Acolyte is our last uncommon. It's a
Yeah.
1/2 core ally for a single white. And it has Cohort, so tap it and an untapped ally to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment card from among them and put it into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
I remember this being a lot like Augur of Bolus, where
Oh,
it
okay,
actually
yeah.
turned out to be like, put the top 3 cards of your library on the bottom of your library in any order.
Yeah.
Right? Top 4 in this
Yeah,
case.
you need to play like
But
5 equipments or something, or
Yeah.
this guy to hit reliably. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you just really
don't
want
wanna
an
do that.
ally.
Yeah, he's a 1-mana ally one too. That's
Yeah.
what he's got going for him.
And our rare is the Corrupted Crossroads. It's a land, taps for colorless, or tap and pay 1 life to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, but you may only use it to cast a spell with Devoid. So,
I can't remember if this got any play in Standard. Maybe in like the early days of the Gatewatch, people were trying Eldrazi aggro.
maybe.
Not much play for sure.
Certainly didn't see play in Modern. The
No.
Eldrazi deck just used
Yeah. Yeah. We just,
Eldrazi Monument and...
Ayavugan-
not Eldrazi
Ayavugan
Monument.
Eldrazi Temple,
Eldrazi
yeah.
Temple, that was the one.
well, it also just didn't play any of the colored Devoid spells.
But then, well, no, because it played...
well, the earliest versions were red-blue.
Yeah, and they looked
Oh,
like
that's right. No, I'm wrong. Sorry, that's right. They
Yeah.
played the blue flyer
yeah,
that makes a
it
buddy.
just looked like a draft deck. It was great.
Right,
yeah,
right.
it was like a bunch of
It was like a draft deck with a bunch of Ayavugans and Thought-Knots.
Yeah, it's like that GP. It was like all the drafters like finished up their rounds and then just sleeved up 4 Eyes of Ugin and went into the main
won
event.
The Pro Tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, Thought-Knots here, yeah. But then they banned...
They banned Ayavugan in Modern. This
Right.
is coming on 2 years now. It was right after Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then this year, the Pro Tour, I guess we're segueing. Yeah,
Yeah.
this year, the Pro Tour has brought back Modern as a format. So we had all of last year and I believe all of the year before. I think we had 2 full calendar years of all 4 Pro Tours are going to be just standard with draft. So
Yeah.
they wake up in the morning, they go draft, and then they play 5 rounds of standards, and then they do that again, and then the top 8 is just standard. And so we watched nothing but standard from the highest level of play, basically. And then this year they're mixing it up. And
As with any announcement, there was mixed reactions to the return of Modern as a Pro Tour format. But most recently, what happened in Modern was that we had a Modern Pro Tour with some interesting decks and like a pretty cool looking format.
Pretty diverse format.
Yeah, Lantern won for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
It
Pro
did.
Tour for sure.
And
yeah.
people were up in arms about Lantern, even though it was a very, very small percentage of the field, and indeed has very bad matchups, but happened to get there. I was
Salvato played really well, right?
yeah, exactly. Also
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I was also really I love the Hollow One deck.
Oh, cool.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So there was a deck that was in the top 8 called the Hollow One deck, which surrounded the card Hollow One from Amonkhet or Hour of Devastation.
Amonkhet, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's from.
and it's a 4/4 for 5 mana artifact creature, but it's 2 colorless less or 2 generic mana less to cast if you discard for every card you discard that turn.
Yeah.
And so you can do turn 1 discard Street Wraith, Faithless Looting, and then just play a Hollow One for free.
or
turn,
4 hollow ones for free.
yeah,
Yeah.
or turn 2, Goblin Lore is a card I had never heard of before. It's 1 in a red, draw 4 cards, then discard 3 at random,
Yep.
but you're discarding 3 cards.
You've probably given away about 10 of these. You know,
Yeah.
like they've been in some buckets of cards that you've had to leave behind at previous turn bases.
Probably, and so
for sure.
then you can just play Hollow Ones for free. And if you can't play Hollow One, then you've been pitching all these cards to your graveyards. You also play Gurmag Angler, which you just play a 5/5 for 1. And Gurmag Angler and Hollow One both very neatly dodge Fatal Push because they are too expensive.
Yep.
And so this was like this really interesting, weird deck that's just like, I have 8 mana on turn 2. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I remember seeing rounds where it was just like, all right, here it comes, Goblin Lore, and then opponent picks 3 cards, no Hollow Ones in it,
yeah.
Right.
and BDM loses his mind.
Yeah, it's like, what's
Right.
going on? And then he's just like, cool,
Or
here's
not
a Hollow
BD,
One,
or-
here's a Hollow One.
The commentator is just
Yeah.
like, Hollow One, Hollow One, Hollow One, and the opponent's just like,
Yeah.
Yep, scoop it up.
yep.
But then, after the Pro Tour, the banned and restricted announcement, nothing from Lantern was banned. No, not the...
Or Hollow One. They didn't ban Goblin Lore. Was anyone surprised about that?
I was not shocked.
Yeah, like that night I was just holding on to my foil Death Shadows.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Being like, it's okay, baby.
It's okay, we're going to make it through
We're gonna
this.
make it.
I don't think...
Just close your eyes, baby.
For the record, I don't think they should have banned anything
No,
from Lantern. But they did unban a couple things. Bloodbraid Elf
Maybe you've heard of this card.
and our old friend Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Who's that again?
So
4-drop's not relevant in Modern.
just to remind you, Bloodbraid Elf, 2 red, green for a 3/2 with haste. That's all right, sure, that's aggressive, nice, I guess, yeah.
False Shock.
But it has Cascade, which is when you cast the spell, you exile cards from the top of your library until you hit a non-land card that costs less than Bloodbraid Elf. So any 3/2 or 1-drop, you play that card for free, and then you put all the exiled cards on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So there's that, and then of course, Jace the Mind Sculptor, 2 blue for a 4 ability Planeswalker, who enters with 3 loyalty.
He starts off with 3 loyalty. Yeah, he doesn't have quite as much space in his art, unfortunately. He's one of these cards that few cards in Magic where they've played with the frame a bit. So yeah, you only really get to see his hands and then all these words.
So
Yeah.
plus 2.
I have all these abilities.
Look at the top card of target player's library, either player, and you can choose to put that card on the bottom if you want. That's typically referred to as Fate Seal. For 0 mana, you can brainstorm. You draw 3 cards and then put 2 from your hand on top of your library. Two cards from anywhere in your hand. It doesn't have to be 2 of the 3 that you drew.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this
which is
before, yes, it
relevant.
does say draw 3 cards there.
Yes. -1, bounce a creature to its owner's hand, yours or theirs. And -12, exile all cards in target player's library. Then that player shuffles his or her hand into his or her library. Basically, their library goes away, and their hand, however big it is, becomes their library, and then presumably they lose in 2 turns. It's a very powerful card. So, Nelson, as someone who's more involved,
I have
or
played
at
a
least-
match of Modern in my life.
or at least more aware of the current goings-on in Modern. What do you make of this? They've
is
unbanned Bloodbraid and Jace.
This is the hugest splash in the pond, as LSV said. But yeah, he's right. Yeah, it's like sorry, go ahead, Paul. Do you?
I was just going to say the one of the few spoilers that have been released for Masters 25 is
Right.
Jace.
Oh, they did spoil that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna reference a couple other things you can check on the internet. One was LSV's quick hits, which I thought was succinct but pretty good, and then also just the initial banner restricted announcement from Ian Duke I thought was pretty well written. So, and I think this, well, it's a huge deal, and we might, I think it's going to be fairly impactful and shift the metagame around a bunch. People are going to definitely want to play with Jace and try Bloodbraid Elf in a bunch of different decks. I think the timing of this was pretty good. We had a fairly healthy-ish Modern Pro Tour, which you could argue, for sure, it's a decent argument, like, why change anything? Just let's keep playing the same format, and more things will change and evolve. But it's also, I think it's a good time to unban these cards, because unbanning these cards is just something that such a huge swath of the playing community, I think, wants. These are 2 of the cards that you can't play in Modern as of last week or whatever, and can play in Legacy. And they're cards that decks in Legacy kind of revolve around. Jace, like an important piece of the Miracles deck. More important even now that Sensei's Top is gone. That's a bit more of a fringe deck now, but for a long time, Jace was this really go-to card in Legacy. And then Bloodbraid Elf, just a mainstay in Jund. So, yeah, I think, LSV said it pretty well that I think Lantern is affected poorly by this. So if you are a player that was up in arms about Lantern winning a Pro Tour, Jace getting unbanned is kind of bad news for Lantern in general. I agree with that. He also said, though, that decks are going to try to go faster to get under Jace, and I think that makes sense. But he said that Tron is in a bad spot. Now, before this Pro Tour, I thought Tron was kind of like the boogeyman of Modern, and
what does that deck actually do?
So,
in Modern?
There's a few different variants, right? So the normal version is playing like a bunch of Wormcoil Engines, Karns, and Ugins as its top end. And they all play a bunch of mana-fixing artifacts, Chromatic Star and Chromatic Sphere. They play mostly Ancient Stirrings if they're a green version. There's different versions of different colors.
Do they actually play the Tron lands?
Yes, so they play Urza's Mine,
Right.
Urza's Tower, and Urza's Power Plant, 4 of each. And they try to get 1 of each in play on turn 3 without any extra land plays or anything. They just play an Urza's Mine from their hand, tap, make 1 colorless mana to play an Expedition map. Then they play, hopefully, an Urza's Tower and then sacrifice the map to go get the power plant. Or if they have to, they'll go the other way and play a Chromatic Star first off one of their Urza lands, and then use it to cast an Ancient Stirrings to find the second one, and then maybe do that again to find the third. And then, so sometimes you have all 3 in play on turn 3, but you've tapped one of them because you had to resolve 1 more of these. So you only have 5 for 4 mana remaining on turn 3. But the dream is just getting to Karn on turn 3, and then you can either take 2 of their lands in a row, or you can start attacking their hand. Yeah, so that's still pretty fast, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not super reliable. This deck doesn't usually play a ton of like blue cards, and as I said earlier, it doesn't have extra land drops, so it doesn't always assemble all 3 right away on turn 3. But I think it does enough of the time. Like, we just, from a lot of the matches I've been watching or played against, is like the threat of the turn 3 Urza's Land big play it's real enough that as the opponent you kind of have to consider it, or deck building, or going into a given tournament you have to kind of consider it.
Just because you've been mentioning it a lot, what actually is the Lantern deck?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the Lantern Control is a very unusual deck that it's not quick, but boy, is it effective. Can you do a TLDR of Lantern Control?
No problem. Right. So Lantern Control, the pieces look a lot like Affinity. So that's Mox Opal and other cheap artifacts. Instead of the cheap artifacts being creatures, they're 1-mana artifacts that allow you to put the top card of target or both players' library into their graveyard. They're known as mill rocks. Their names are Pyxis of Pandemonium, Lantern of Insight,
Codex
Shredder, and then sometimes if they want one more, they'll play Ghoul Color Spell. We haven't seen Ghoul Color Spell show up too often lately because there's just better cards.
So the Lantern of Insight is the Lantern in Lantern Control.
Yeah, I think Ghoul Color Spell has kind of fallen apart, or fallen out of favor, I mean, since the printing of Whir of Invention. So the deck also has access, since Kaladesh, it has access to Whir of Invention and Expedition Map, which can find either of Inventor's Fair or Academy Ruins, or they probably play like one Field of Ruin.
So Lantern doesn't actually mill by itself, it just plays with the top card revealed.
Right.
So that you can control what your opponent's drawing.
That's right. So the Lantern lets you see what your opponent's going to draw, and then the other two, the Pyxis and the Codex Shredder, allow you to stop them from drawing a certain card. And the Lantern also does this. It can sacrifice itself to have target players shuffle their library. So if your opponent or you are about to draw a card that you can't have them draw, or you would either lose the game or they would win the game, then you can sacrifice the Lantern too. But then you lose your insight, which is your ability to see the top library. Anyways, it sets all this up so that you make sure the opponent doesn't draw any problem cards for you. And then it also locks the game up. It prevents itself from dying by playing Ensnaring Bridge.
Right.
And then
that's the key. Creatures
can't attack you when Ensnaring Bridge is in play because you play out all the cards from your hand. So you play empty-handed with Ensnaring Bridge, and then it wins either with just Codex Shredder. So there's
just milling them out.
There's two ways to do it. So you can either win with Codex Shredder and the Pyxis or whatever, lots of Codex Shredders, milling them out. So you just like get rid of all of their cards in their library while not being attacked, and then they die from drawing on an empty library. Or you can just Codex Shredder. What's the other way to do it? Sorry, you can sacrifice the Codex Shredder every turn to put anything like a Mox Opal or whatever back in your hand, and then use your Academy Ruins to put your Codex Shredder back on top of your library. And sometimes they'll go about doing this because they just don't have enough mill rock. If you have spare mill rocks in play, you can usually speed the process up. But if you kind of only have one Codex Shredder, you can still put them in a lock where you stop drawing cards, basically. As the Lantern player, you stop getting new cards out of your deck, and you just work with whatever's in your graveyard. So you sacrifice Codex Shredder, get back a card from your graveyard, and keep drawing the Codex Shredder with Academy Ruins. So that prevents you from losing to mill, and then the game just goes on normally. Your opponent still draws one card per turn. You make sure it isn't an important card.
You could also, I guess, crack a Pyxis and get a bunch of your opponent's cards.
Well, the Pyxis gives both of you cards, so if you
put them back into their play too. Okay,
you don't just steal all the cards. That card would be really neat. No problem.
This is amazing because this is.
It also can win with Tezzeret.
Right.
Sorry, it plays Tezzeret Asian Bolus and can win quickly if it just goes plus and then -4.
This is a game of Magic played on a completely different axis than most other decks.
That's right. Yeah, it's like a dredge. Well, it's sort of like a mill deck, right? So it does mill your opponent out sometimes, but it's not a typical blue aggressively just cast a bunch of spells to mill you out, and. It's also kind of like a stasis deck or something because it's trying to just like gum the game up and make sure nothing fun can happen for anyone.
I mean, it seems like the fate sealing ability of Jace fits right in with that.
Well, so these decks might want to play Jace, and so that, I mean, if that turns out to give them an extra tool, great. It's just that if the opponent gets a Jace down, and the thing about Lanterns, so we talked earlier about how it stops your opponent from getting any new cards that are going to be a problem, but it has to deal with whatever cards were in the opponent's hand when they sort of put the lock together. They don't. They play Inquisitions of Kozilek and stuff, and so like sometimes you have a perfect game where you're never in trouble. But oftentimes, if you're piloting the Lantern deck, there's kind of a like moment of unsurety, like when you're putting it together. You'll sometimes get a perfect draw, but often there's like a couple turns. You know, there's sort of turn 2, turn 3, maybe turn 4, where your opponent has access to all their resources. So if they even just get a Jace into their hand, and then, you know, you have to allow them to draw the lands to play it or whatever, you don't know about the Jace yet, then your opponent having a Jace with you as the Lantern player, that's a little scary. For a couple reasons. One, it can win the game with the +2 into the -12. So it's a non-creature win condition that your opponent only played to draw cards.
Because the Lantern deck has no way of interacting with Jace.
Yeah, I mean,
Once he's in play, they
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
They can't hurt him.
yeah. Well, not. I don't think so from the list
Like,
we usually
the
see,
traditional Lantern deck has like no creatures in it,
Yeah.
basically. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that reason, I think Jace being unbanned is a little scary for Lantern.
Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is if they just have a Lantern in play, or if they have a Jace in play against Lantern, the Brainstorm ability is really good, right? Because the Lantern player only ever sees the top card. He doesn't see the 2 cards down. So the Jace player just gets to say like, oh, okay, you want a Ghoul Caller's Bell or Pixis Pandemonium away my, my Ancient Grudge or my Cooling Expander or whatever that's on top that's going to destroy your Ensnaring Bridge. That's fine. But like then on my turn, I'm going to draw whatever you saw, and then I'm going to draw 3 more cards, right? Like there's a really good chance to hit something else relevant off the Brainstorm. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's going to turn out that Lantern Control with Jace is like the next new powerhouse deck. Yeah, it's possible, but
Yeah, I
ahead.
mean, it feels like the kind of deck that only works if the meta is not expecting it.
I would tend to agree. Yeah, I don't think many people expected Lantern Control to win the last Modern Pro Tour, and not a lot of people brought it. A lot of the pros brought 5-color humans.
It was
right?
like 2% of the field, I think.
Yeah, and I also think that I would totally agree with you, Paul. I think Lantern is a really good meta call in the certain circumstance where there's not going to be a ton of. Basically, if Affinity doesn't already have a huge target on its back, Lantern is in a decent spot. If it's also a fairly creature-heavy meta. Now, the Lantern, really relevantly, actually, the Lantern deck that won the Pro Tour played a main deck Witchbane Orb. We haven't talked about that yet, but this is another thing that they do to deal with other.
Orb.
Yeah, so this is like a Leyline of Sanctity. It just gives you hexproof. So this does deal with the Jace killing you, because it's like its target player on the -12.
Right. So.
Oh yeah, it also destroys all curses.
4-mana artifact when it enters the battlefield. Yeah, it destroys all curses attached to you, and then you have hexproof.
Yeah. So, I actually tuned into the Pro Tour when Luis Salvato was getting a game loss in the Swiss rounds. This is when I started watching that Modern Pro Tour, because he had accidentally boarded out his Witchbane Orb in a previous round, and then like when he was on an on-camera match, feature match, at the end of a game 1, he was like searching with Inventor's Fair or Worm Invention to find his Witchbane Orb so that he wouldn't die to his burn opponent. And then he was like, oh no, I have like 2 Engineered Explosives or something instead of Engineered Explosives and a Witchbane Orb.
So he was just like.
And then he went through his whole deck 3 times, then he was like,
Judge,
yeah,
Can you
I have
please-
to game lost myself, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that
it's good
sucks.
stuff. Yeah. But anyways, they normally play one of these main to keep them alive against Burn, because Burn against Lantern is otherwise a pretty tough matchup. It really and when your opponent's cards are all the same, it's hard to Ghoul Caller's Bell, or it's hard to Codex Shredder away the important ones.
Right.
But so this deals with that.
I was watching Kenji, new one,
Okay. Yeah.
stream yesterday because the new Modern ban list is already enacted.
Yeah, it's already happening on Moto. Yeah.
Magic Online,
Yeah.
and he was playing Jace with this take extra turns deck.
Mono blue taking turns, maybe?
Yeah.
Was it just blue?
Yep.
So that's a really hot pickup
Which
for
was
that deck.
crazy to watch because he
Temporal
was,
Mastery gets a whole lot better when you can brainstorm.
Yeah, Temporal Mastery, of course, it's like 6 mana, take another turn, but you can miracle it for 2.
Yep.
But he was in a situation where his opponent had been countering stuff, but Kenji had 7 mana Temporal Mastery,
Even more,
but
yeah.
2 if you miracle it to take an extra turn. He had 2 Dictative Crewfix in play.
Okay, so that's drawing 3 cards a turn,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And so it went to his turn, and he went, well, let's just see if this resolves, and cast Time Warp, targeting himself.
Sure.
Which is just 5 mana, target
Take a
player
turn.
takes another turn. And it resolved, and it's like, okay, then you lose.
Right.
Because it's just like, he takes an extra turn, then he untaps, draws 3 cards, hits land, plays another take extra turn
Yep.
spell, because the deck is running Time Warp, Temporal Mastery, part the Water Veil.
This one's 6 mana.
Which is really key.
Walk the
Delve one?
Eons.
Walk the.
I don't know
Yeah.
that it plays the Delve one. It turns out Temporal Trespass is actually just super fair. It's just a lot of mana. Delve 8 is
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
but then
yeah.
so he had 5 mana, took an extra turn, 6 mana, took an extra turn, 7. With 7 mana, he could play Snapcaster, Flashback, Time Warp, and then he's just taking infinite, because he's drawing 3 cards every turn, so he's hitting a lot of these draw spells, or he's hitting a lot of these take extra turn cards, and he's just hitting for 2 every turn with Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah.
And his opponent just doesn't get to take turns. Yeah. And I mean, eventually he'll get to awaken a land with Part of the Water Veil, and then he'll have a 6. Like, that's how this deck wins, with Part of the Water Veil awakened on a 6 power land, or just slowly hitting him with Snapcaster. But it's like, it looks filthy. It's amazing.
Well, Megan did a podcast about this deck
Yeah.
a while ago, and she said, like, yeah, sometimes you have a really good, like, first 4 turns against burn, and then you lose to burn,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know, you have a rough matchup against burn where you lose to burn, and then you have a really good matchup against burn where you lose to burn, right? And, like, the deck sounds amazing, and I think Jace is a huge pickup for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice when you play cards. You know, these. I played a bunch in Canadian Highlander, a deck similar to Mono Blue taking turns. It's like blue green taking turns basically, and I've tried out the Howling Minds and the Dictative Crucifixes, but yeah, playing Jace the Mind Sculptor was always a mainstay in that deck. It's just nice if you're forced by your strategy to draw extra cards, not to let your opponent also draw extra cards.
Well,
Yeah,
like
it turns out.
the other card that deck really liked playing was Jace Bellerin, like Baby Jace.
Yeah.
Right? Because it also just kind of like milled your opponent so slowly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so
well, getting you ahead.
Jace Bellerin doesn't have to draw your opponent cards, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other
Oh yeah, we got the Super Saiyan one up on the screen.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
The other fun thing is I was actually talking to Jeremy White about this deck involving Bloodbraid Elf, which I don't know if you've heard of this deck, Cam. I believe it's named Ponza after the person who created it. So
Red-green Ponza, yeah.
yeah, so you go turn 1 Forest Arbor Elf.
Yeah.
And by forest, I mean either basic forest
Like
or
stomping
like
ground.
stomping ground or something, you know,
Right.
like one of the shocklands. Because Arbor Elf taps to untap a forest. Turn 2, you play a second land.
Forest, sure.
Yeah, a second forest of some form, and you put Utopia Sprawl
Yep.
on the first forest. So then Utopia Sprawl makes that first forest now tap for 2 mana. So you tap it, untap it with Arbor Elf, tap it again. You have 4 mana on turn 2. So you cast Bloodbraid Elf and cascade into one of the following hits: Blood Moon, Stone Rain, or Molten Rain.
Yep.
And you just land destruction your opponent.
Yeah.
On turn 2.
Unfortunately, you can also obviously hit Utopia Sprawls and Arbor Elves in this plan, but
True.
it's still a sweet deck.
Yeah.
But you could also just hit, like you could also, depending on what you have in your hand, you could also just cast one of those land destruction spells.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
it'd be better if you cascade into it with Bloodbraid Elf. But if you're on turn 2 hitting, Blood Moon or land destruction or something, what's your opponent supposed to do?
For sure, and this deck has been around for a while, and it's pretty excited to get Bloodbraid Elf because it's already been playing cards like Hunt Master of the Fells.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a Facebook group devoted to this deck, and I don't actually play it a bunch myself, but I've tried it in Canadian Highlander, and I'm like kind of a fan of the archetype, and yeah, I've played various land destruction decks over my years. Yeah, but I haven't played this one in Modern yet. But it's already usually focused on trying to get a turn 2 Blood Moon, right? Like that's like the best case scenario. So that Blood Moon, cool card that Bloodbraid Elf likes to cascade into. What else is happening in Modern? So,
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Like,
like
we've talked a bit about Jace, and I mentioned that Ponza deck. How Bloodbraid Elf was one of the earliest banned. Like, it wasn't on.
Well,
the
Mind Sculptor
first...
Mind Sculptor started off being banned. I'm pretty sure, right? Like, I don't think you could play Jace or Ancestral Vision in the original Modern format.
Correct, but Bloodbraid Elf was one of the ones that was.
That's right. Yeah, you could play Bloodbraid Elf, and you did in Jund. Yeah, and then also there was a red-green. It wasn't Ponza, but there was like a red-green. There was red-green Warriors, I feel like, and then there was also like a red-green tempo aggro deck that did okay in Modern for a little while too.
Do you think, is there a specific card or group of cards that has made Jason Bloodbraid Elf now okay to have in Modern?
Yeah, so Ian Duke mentioned this, and it's like the overall power level and speed of the format has gone up over time just as more cards have been dumped into the pool. And I think I don't know if it's any one card in particular that really balances out Jace, and I think Jace is going to be really strong.
Was Jace on the original ban list? I'm trying to remember. You'd think I'd remember. I actually played in the first ever Modern event,
Wow.
which was because it was the Community Cup.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
That's
Right,
where
right,
that's
right.
where they debuted it, and they were like, "We're debuting a new format. It's called Modern. This is the ban list."
Right.
And then we had to make it was unified constructed. So like
wow,
we
cool,
had to
yeah.
make a team.
Three decks, yeah.
Thank God, no, more than that, more than 3.
It was like 9 decks or
Thank,
something?
thank God LSV was on our team for that. Because it was basically like, Mr. Scott Vargas, what are the decks we are all playing? But yeah, there was just, I remember looking at the list, and I like that Golgari Grave Troll was on the initial list, and people were like, really? Okay. And then they've since banned and rebanned, or
Unbanned
unbanned and
and
rebanned
rebanned it,
Golgari
yeah.
Grave Troll. They were like, oh, maybe Grave Troll's not actually that. No, we were wrong. We were right the first time. We were right the first time.
Yeah.
Ban it again.
And there was a 5-0 league deck on Aaron Forsyth shared a recent Moto 5-0 league since the unbanning, and there was a dredge deck that 5-0'd.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jace was on the original
Right.
the original ban list. I like that there's a ban list that came out in August.
Yeah.
And then in September, they were like, okay, Blazing Shoal, Cloud Post, Green Sun, Zenith, Ponder, Preordain, and Rite of Flame are also on the list.
Yeah, so that was after the first tour, right? Like the very first tour. I'm not sure if it was Sam Black. I want to say it was Sam Black who figured out. Maybe it was a few different people figured out this deck, but it was turn 1 Glistener Elf or Inkmoth Nexus. Turn 2 Exile Progenitus, cast Blazing Shoal, targeting your infect
Just-
creature
yeah.
and win the game. Yeah.
Blazing Shoal is
And it played like Pact and Negation because you didn't have to pay the 5 mana because you'd won.
right. Oh, that's
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. Blazing Shoal is you remove a red card. You exile a red card with converted mana cost X rather than pay for it. Progenitus being red because it's all colors, and then target creature gets plus X plus O. So where X is the converted mana cost. So yeah, then
You can play
just-
any red card that pumped for 9 or more, but yeah.
And then like Nelson points out, if they try to remove it, then you Pact of Negation because you're going to win right there, so you don't care.
Yeah.
So they ban. So yeah, Blazing.
They
Shoal
don't
is
want
banned.
Modern to be a turn 2 format.
So it was, August 2011 is when Modern first was sort of codified.
Yeah, that was the Community Cup.
And it wasn't until 2013 January that Bloodbraid Elf was originally banned.
Right.
So it was in like the second round of.
Yeah, after the format shook down a bit, Jund started being kind of a powerhouse that I don't know that it actually Jund was like winning too much, but it was taking up a lot of the mega. They'd done a bunch of bans in Modern, specifically Bloodbraid Elf, Wild Nicatl, and Splinter Twin. There
Right.
might have been another one in there, but those 3 were all just, hey, these cards are they're kind of too heavy in the big net. You know, it's like if you're like anywhere circling around this strategy, you're always going to play Bloodbraid Elf Jund, you know, or you're always going to play Blue Red Splinter Twin, or you're always going to play Naya Wild Nicatl. And they felt like they were too.
Is Wild Nicatl now unbanned?
Yeah,
again?
so Wild Nicatl has been unbanned and it was okay. Now that one may be least surprising because they've been pushing creatures more and more as the game goes on, trying to make better and better, cheaper creatures. So the creatures are kind of the main focus of Magic because that was the actual original idea. And you know, Death Shadow has been figured out, so that's like an 8/8 for 1. So Wild Nicatl seems fair, I guess, right? Also, Delver of Secrets isn't banned, so you know, and there's various other creatures have been printed that kind of matter in Modern.
I guess where I was going with asking like when things have been unbanned, and I guess I sort of mentally blew past it. Is so this is actually the first time that Jace the Mind Sculptor has been legal in Modern.
Yeah, this is the first time. So, and that's I think what I was saying, like at the beginning of our chat about Modern. I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see some of these Modern tournaments. I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of players who are kind of like, I only want to play Legacy, you know, or just not super excited by Modern. Maybe they'll play the odd PPTQ or something if they're devoted grinders, but they're not looking to get into Modern. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of cool brews, you know, because Jace is just a really exciting card. He's one of the most powerful cards that's ever been printed in the game, and yeah, people love playing him. And in terms of like stuff, people kind of worried that it's going to be. I saw someone tweeted pretty succinctly, like if you don't like losing to Lantern, you're going to really not like losing to Jace the Mind Sculptor, as he just like controls your draws and then also just like refills his hand and deals with your board, like he does everything.
That's
but
what Standard was like when we started playing Magic.
right,
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you would know better, maybe if like losing to Jace was something that just like drove you up the wall, like they play the Mind Sculptor and you just feel like the game's over, but you have to wait 10 more minutes. All right,
Yeah.
Well, to be fair,
if that's a thing, then that's a thing.
I think the most demoralizing thing was playing like just some weird homebrew deck.
Sure.
That I brought to F&M, and round one sit across from somebody who's playing Cobblade, and they resolve Jace, Fate Seal me, look at my top deck, and are like, "What?"
Right.
I'm gonna keep this on top
You
because
can
I
draw
want to see.
that.
Yeah, because I want to see what your deck is actually, what you think your deck is trying to do.
Yeah, because when
Right?
we started playing, it was in the middle of like Zendikar Worldwake and all that was legal.
Right. Cobblade Standard. Yeah.
I was nowhere near the player I am now, certainly not aware of the local metagame, which, by the way, I think we've talked about it before. Our local F&M, certainly at the time, standard-wise, was
pretty sharky.
very competitive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like big green creatures. Here's a deck I built at home. It was standard legal, but it was not like a real deck.
If you brought that to the standard YJ F&M now, you would probably just crush. Because it's like more kids, more brand new players. Like the
Well, 'cause
standard,
this was
the
like-
standard
this would be
F&M
like
has changed.
6 mana, and I get down my Terra Stomper.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sitting across the table from John Rickard,
Sure.
who's on Cobblade, and he's like, cool, minus Jace, bounce your Terra Stomper. And I'm like, I literally have no other play than just recast Terra Stomper. And he's like, I'm just going to keep bouncing this and killing you with these birds. And I'm like, I die now. And it was, that was no fun. But now I understand a little better.
I mean, that didn't feel as bad because at least I got to do my thing. The one that felt really bad when I first started playing Standard was the opponent doing Quest for the Holy Relic.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Ornithopter.
Forgot about that deck.
Get Argentum armor, suit up Ornithopter, kill you on turn 2, and I'm like, come
Well,
on!
it didn't kill you, but
No,
it did,
well, like,
did a bunch of damage and also blew up your land.
The game was over.
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah.
Where just like this little like Ornithopter comes over and fucking like does the Guyver. It blows up your.
Wearing a suit of armor.
Yeah.
I imagine the wings just coming out the armholes.
Yeah.
Just like,
Man, that deck was hilarious. I forgot about that deck. I actually have a lot of refs of that deck.
so I'm glad Jace isn't back in Standard, but I'm excited to see what happens in Modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, Bloodbraid Elf into Kolaghan's Command, Bloodbraid Elf into Collective Brutality, Bloodbraid Elf into Liliana of the Veil, Bloodbraid Elf into Blightning. Blightning kills Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Bloodbraid Elf into Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless. What can you Bloodbraid Elf into?
I also think, and this is
Stone
another,
Ring.
this is another reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend the choice to unban these two powerful cards because I think a
please,
bunch of the
Take us
main.
home with that, yeah.
That's fine. I think a bunch of the main archetypes. I even disagree with LSV that playing Urza lands are bad. Well, we'll see. Maybe that'll fall to favor. I just think the odds of going turn 3 Karn against either a Bloodbraid Elf deck or a Jace deck it's just scary enough that it's still worth playing these decks. I will say that both a lot of Jace decks and a lot of Bloodbraid Elf decks are going to be jamming Fulminator Mage or Spreading Seas, so maybe that makes the Tron land plan ban. But Tron, Burn, maybe 5-color humans, definitely Grixis Shadow, and Affinity, I think, too. I think Affinity is in a pretty decent spot. And yeah, all these are like kind of known big chunks of the metagame, popular decks, and I think they're all in pretty good shape, especially Burn. I think against either of these new powerful 4-drops, playing Burn is great. And that's so if your unbanning decision makes the format more fun and more people are excited to brew new decks and get into the format while still allowing people who maybe don't have the option, maybe they've invested kind of all they can for this season or this year in their Burn deck or like their Mono Green Elves deck or their Affinity deck. It's like those decks actually are still fine. And I think they're going to do okay against at least the first volley of different brews we're going to see with these two new powerhouses.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, and for that reason, I'm in favor of the unbanning.
Awesome. So, there you go. Deep thoughts over here on the modern unbanning.
Casual depth. Yeah.
Casual depth, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks everybody for joining us this week. A reminder that Tap Tapping Seed is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. And of course, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. So, for Cameron and Nelson, who will be back again, myself, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.